So I just want to make a quick video about a truth of life that's very frustrating that I've learned that it's important that I remember and that as many people as possible can learn early. And the truth is that the laws and principles and rules have been created for usually the what my wife and I call the lowest common denominator. The people who will take advantage of the situation. They're the ones who force the creation of laws and stuff like that. And this is all kind of in a follow up to this video, which blew up in 7 days. I've had over 10,000 views on this video of a truck. If you watch the truck, there's a car coming. You can see it, and there's a truck trying to overtake us, and the other on a double line, and the other car had to veer off rather suddenly into the grass. It's a good thing that there was a shoulder there. If there hadn't been a shoulder there, watch it again. If there hadn't been a shoulder, and oftentimes there's an irrigation ditch there, that car would have been out of commission. They would have had to tow that thing and get it out. Watch what happens here. It goes again. Boom. The truck did give us plenty of room, as many of the commenters have said, um, but the truck had no business overtaking us on a double line on a blind corner and put the other driver in jeopardy, as somebody commented. They didn't care about the bikers. By the way, the reason the bikers are in the middle of the road is because there's like 30 of us, and it's safer to ride two abreast. We weren't riding two abreast in that case, but it's safer to ride two abreast. I don't know if you can see, but the guy in front of me, there's only like 8 inches of road to the right. And that is extremely dangerous, even for a cyclist, because those road shoulders are very, very dangerous. They're full of roots and grass and sometimes glass and thing. And so just riding that close, even on the line like that, and sometimes did you see that little lip? Sometimes there's a little lip on the road, and your bike tire will catch on the lip, and that'll dump you into the middle of the road, which would have brought down the whole peloton, which a truck driver like that would have just mowed right over the top of all of us. And a lot of people would say, you shouldn't be biking on this road, and I agree. I don't. In fact, the caption, which nobody read, says, "This is why I don't do the regular group rides." I don't do regular group rides because they have chosen to drive on these very high traffic, high speed farm roads. And I'm like, this is completely stupid. I don't want to be here, even in a group. I don't want the risk. And I'm old. I'm old. I've moved on to the part where I don't care. I just accept the stupid idiocies and the laws and the people who disregard the law. Like all the people are saying, you have no right to be on the road. These are the reasons. So this is the prompt. This is what prompted this video. Um, the comments in here, just, I mean, I've been talking about them this morning, but the principle behind this video is really what I want to talk about, right? So the reason that we have to have bike lanes, and the reason that we have to create laws that say it's okay for bikers, you got to be, arm's length away, and not just this, but anything. The reason we have to have that is because laws are and rules are always created because we are a society or a community, and there's always going to be somebody in the community who's going to try to get away with something. And I believe somebody told me it's called Kant's moral imperative. Kant's moral imperative, as far as I understand it, I could be getting this wrong. Please correct me in the comments. Is the concept of do what? It's not the golden rule, right? It's like it's the opposite of what can I get away with. It's asking yourself, what if everyone did what I am doing? That's it. And to tell you the truth, that is the one. There are a couple of commandments that I follow. I try to follow anyway. I suck, but and that's one of the biggest ones ever. And once I heard it had a name, I was like, I kind of came into it myself, and then I heard it had a name. Somebody goes, "Yeah, that's Kant's moral imperative." I'm like, okay. It just means the golden rule is broken. I'm sorry. The golden rule is broken because do unto others as you would have others do unto them, or whatever. How's it go? Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. No, because what if you're depressed? What if you're suicidal? You're going to go around killing everybody? Well, you're going to kill yourself, so it's okay, right? That happens. And which brings me back to the main point, lowest common denominator, right? We have to have rules against, in some cases, allowing firearms in elementary schools. I mean, it should be obvious that that you can't take a firearm into an elementary school. Here's another one. It's illegal to light a cigarette in a gas station. You know what else is illegal? I found out when I was a kid. When I was in sixth grade, I studied law. Believe it or not, I really did. Mr. Blaine Polson, my teacher, who was a former police officer who'd been wounded in action, retired, became a cop, one of the best teachers I've ever had, set up a mock trial system and taught us a lot about law. And, you know, he was old. He was old, just like me. He was like, you know, I'm going to try to do my best. And he had been wounded. I mean, he'd served a wonderful life as a amazing police officer, and now he wanted to teach young kids in particular about the rule of law. And so one of the things we did is we would read all of these different mock laws, all of these fake laws that were out there, and he set up this system, this court system within the school, which was actually given oversight of situations like once upon a time I knocked over Vicki Adams. I'll never forget. I knocked over Vicki Adams' pencil case in sixth grade, and she sued me. She sued me. I was like, what? And I had to learn how to be a lawyer to defend myself in the sixth grade. And I had to like present a case and everything. I mean, Mr. Polson, had won awards for this. People were like clamoring to get him to teach at their schools because he had invested so much of his own personal time and energy in helping people. God, it gets me a little bit emotional because he really changed my life. He watched out for me for the rest of my life, and he tried to teach us little kids about the rule of law and how it works and why, if you knock a pencil case over, you got to prove whether it was on accident or on purpose, because it could be intentional, and that could be, first degree pencil knocking over or whatever. And I went on to be extremely fascinated. In fact, in sixth grade, I was so interested in it. I set as a career to become a lawyer, and that kept with me for many, many years. I told myself I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I found out what lawyers actually do. So yeah, I mean, so what laws are being broken here, and how does this relate? So Kant's moral imperative says, what if everybody did it, right? And the lowest common denominator, the reason laws exist is because there is a certain amount in the population who thinks that none of it, they're the exception to the rule. And if you want to find pure evil, and I mean pure evil, almost every time you find pure evil, it's somebody who thinks that they are the exception to the rule. They think that the rules don't apply to them. Because God has called them, or because they're smarter than everybody else, or because they have more experience. They think it's not so much they think they're better, they think that they are allowed to break Kant's moral imperative and do whatever the hell they want. And let's go back to this example again. Let's ask the question. So let me summarize a little bit. The first part of this is just accept that there are people in the world who are going to be this truck driver, who are going to think that they are the exception to the rule. Like the people in the comments who don't even watch the whole video or read the title or use proper English. There are going to be people like that. You can't avoid them. And if you live in a civilized society, they're always going to be there. You can't get rid of them. And as soon as you try to get rid of them, now you got a police state. Now you're like killing people that disagree with you, or killing people because they're stupid, or killing people because they're genetically inferior / eugenics. You can't have it. Society is always going to have people that, for whatever reason, think that they can get away with it. And the rules and the rule of law have to be created to protect us from that. And it's really unfortunate. And I have another story related to this. When I started my own company, right? Don't get mad, get busy. I was really mad because there was nobody teaching coding to the kids in school. They're coming out of school, including college, where they paid for a very expensive computer science degree and can't get a job because they can't code. Okay? A lot of opportunity to be angry there. That's why I said, fine. Instead of being angry, I'm actually going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to take a 40% loss on my own retirement money. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to start a company, and I am going to make a difference. I'm going to make a difference. I am going to start my own company. My wife's like, yes, you should do that. That's a great idea. I'm like, damn, okay. I got a year and a half of money to spend to see if I can make this work. And the point is that I really went for it. And it was just me. So I'm getting to the point. It was just me doing it all. That meant I cleaned the bathrooms. That meant I talked to the fire marshal when he came in and said, "Where's your fire extinguisher?" That meant that I wrote all the code to help, including encrypted password code to help the 9-year-olds remember their passwords sometimes. It meant that I bought all of the equipment and set it all up. I did all the networking. I did it all myself. That's not a flex. It's just the point is I was overworked. I mean, I was doing everything. And I did not have a lot of extra time. So, what did I do? In fact, I was so naive. Naive is the only word that works here. I was naive. So these parents, extremely wealthy parents, I learned a couple lessons the hard way, and I had to react to this. And this is one of the reasons I'm telling this story, because perhaps some of you out there can avoid by putting these safeties for you in place in advance. And so I made several business policy decisions based on assuming the best of humanity. Huge mistake. Huge freaking mistake. Assuming good in everyone as a business owner. Horrible, terrible mistake. Don't do it. Assume the worst of every single person who walks in your door and hope for the best. That's a better way to do it. And I'm going to tell you, that sounds very, very negative. I'm sorry. I'm just going to save somebody thousands of dollars and several hours of time. And let me tell you how I came to that conclusion. I was mentoring people who were the adopted sons of the PayPal CTO and bank. I mean, huge people in the industry, and all these people. I thought, oh God, I can totally assume the best of them. And this isn't about them being horrible people. This is about when you give people. You probably heard a similar concept to this. It's like, don't make anything free because no one will appreciate it, right? So let me tell you what I did. So I went ahead and I set up a schedule. And my initial business practice was for them to only pay for the time they came. And the idea of this was, I figured, oh, hey, there's going to be many kids, and there's going to be many situations where a parent can't make it on time, or they can't make it to their mentoring class time, or, they have a conflict. And I said, fine, we'll just charge them for the time that they're actually here. Huge mistake. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. It was a very free mistake. Everybody loves free, right? So, I mean, on streaming free content is kind of a little different situation, but so what did I do? I charged only for the time they came. Obviously, they just didn't show up. And then I'm like, how am I going to make my rent this month? All these people who were too busy to show up weren't getting penalized at all. And yet and the other thing too is because I was the business owner and I was directly speaking. If I had like a layer of management in between me, employees between me and the person, then I could have got the kind of thing that you would get like renting a car, right? You go rent a car and you go to the front desk and something's not right, and you tell the person, well, this doesn't make any sense, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I'm sorry, that's our policy. Bye-bye. Love it or hate it. Can I speak to your manager? Sure. Manager comes out. I'm sorry, that's our policy. Bye-bye. But if you come out and it's the business owner and you are an empathetic business owner like me who talks to the other person like, oh yeah, sure, no, you don't have to worry, you're fine, right? So if it's actually that level of insulation from your business is actually a good thing, because then you can set the policies and you can say, this is our policy, just do it that way, and you can kind of. But the reason that I was kind of like loosey goosey and sort of naive and too nice was because I was the one who was going to have to face off against my customer, and the customer was going to be, it's like the whole bar tab thing, where people don't pay their bar tab for 2 years. I let one parent. There was a guy that I had been mentoring for a very long time, and his parents were phenomenal. They were actually friends with us, And I let him go a year and a half without paying his bill. That's how stupid I was. And I kept him, let him come and everything. And I kept saying, well, they'll pay it eventually. They'll pay it eventually. And eventually they came into me and they go, you know what, we're having a really hard time. We're not going to be able to pay the bill. I'm like, well, I got to eat too. This money comes. This is why I don't have a lot of money. This is why I'm in my pajamas in a popcorn ceiling apartment right now, because I have no spine for business. I am way too nice. And I got taken over. I got, just taken, totally taken. So how did I fix that? Well, what I first did is I said, look, if you're going to come here, you're going to pay for a certain number of slots. And I tried to say, okay, if you're going to come, if you don't just pay at the time, you would like buy like a card, and it's so stupid. You punch your card, and if you could use 15, you could come anytime, and just punch your card or whatever, and then we would add you all up, and it would be, and the idea was we'd have so many of you going through the thing. Fast forward to 2 years later, when I realized I didn't want anybody in my organization who was kind of halfway in. I wanted people that were fully committed. That meant nobody came unless they signed up for a full semester of 16 courses. And that meant that I gave them 2 days of absolute freebies. That means if they didn't show up for whatever reason, they were good. 2 of them. That meant traffic was bad or they had a conflict or something. So you get 2 of these. Then you only get 2. After that, I'm still charging you the full price. And by the way, if you are later than 10 minutes, we automatically cancel the time so that I can do something else with that time. And I had one parent take me to task over that one. She said, but I paid you for that full hour, so you should just be available if I show up. I said, no, my time is valuable, and I'm not going to sit around and wait for you without you telling me. I didn't say that. I said, no, I'm sorry, that's the policy. But that's what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say was like, really, you think that just because you're paying me that I'm just going to sit there and twiddle my thumbs while I wait around for you the entire hour, and then you're gonna want me to try to stuff an entire hour's worth of instruction into 20 minutes at the very end because you can't make it on time? Meanwhile, people that are coming from 45 minutes away have never missed a session because they come in and they park down the street and their mom goes and does stuff and has food or whatever while they wait for their time so that they're never late. Why would I cater to you, entitled rich asshole, who can't make it on time, when there's someone else who's actually coming from much farther away, making much greater sacrifices, who never is late? Lowest common denominator. The policies and the rules that I built had to be made by the people who thought it was okay. I had to make it. This big Lexus SUV goes in my front lawn and basically does a Brody in the lawn and rips the crap out of our lawn. Everything. It was like had huge dents in the whole thing. And because they thought they were entitled to do it because we had moved to a different location, and they're like, they needed to turn around. They didn't consider any of the things that we told them. Park around the corner and walk over here. They thought they were entitled to rip the hell out of our lawn, out of my personal lawn, the lawn that Doris set up and did all the work on, because they thought they were the exception to the rule. Obviously, this very modestly, this modest little home that I was renting at the time is not nearly as valuable as their $1 million estate over on the peninsula that they drive to every day with their Lexus. They completely destroyed the lawn, and they did not care. And so I had to make a policy. I had to say, look, no, don't do that. Go over here. And people would come down. I would talk to them about it. I'd have to be. The worst part of this is I had to be polite. I had to be polite to these people. I had to be polite to these people who thought that they were the exception to the rule. That thought that there was no rule. And since there's no rule, I can do whatever I want. I have been dealing with people like that my whole life, and particularly when I was a business owner. So the point is, laws and rules are there to cater to the assholes who think that they can get away with it. They think that that the rules don't apply to them, that for some reason they don't follow Kant's moral imperative. They think that they are the one exception to the rule. Well, surely, let me tell you one last one, okay? So there's a guy, very prominent dentist, came with his son, and he sat down with me, and this is another thing I started doing. I started having interviews with the parents and usually the 9 to 19-year-old son that was there, because I learned through hard experience that I did not ever want to let somebody into my community that was not going to be that was going to be less of a hassle. Let's put it that way. That's the nicest way I can put it. So I sat down. I had lots of interviews. And there's been a couple times where I said, "No, I just feel like this isn't the best fit for you." And I was in the middle of an interview with this guy. This guy sat down and he had his son, and he thought, I mean, I'm just gonna say it. He thought he was God's gift to the earth, man, and he would dominate the conversation and everything. And he would, his son would start to talk, and he would jump over him, and he would talk over him, and he would say, "This is what we want for him," and all this. And actually, one time in this particular interview, I knew the interview was going bad. It's always really hard for me because sometimes I want to help the person, but that I'm going to be mentoring, and I see how horrible their parents are, and so I'm like, okay, I can maybe help this person despite their parents, and that was one of these cases. So I actually, but it got better. So during the interview, I said to the person, to the kid, the boy that was there, I asked him a question. I said, so what projects have you always dreamed of doing with tech? And I asked him the question very directly, and his dad broke in, kind of stuffed his face in front of me, and started answering the question right as he was about to answer. And the kid shrunk back down in his chair, and he was very, frustrated and dejected, and he just folded his arms, and he just let his dad talk, and you could tell it had happened all his life. His entire life, he had just been, letting his dad tell him what to do and decide his life for him. And I'm not against parents helping children find their way by sometimes perhaps even forcing them to try different things. But in this case, and he sat down, and I turned right to the dad and I said, "Excuse me, I'm asking him." And I said it just like that. And to this day, it was one of my favorite moments ever. And he just shrunk down. His face was like so full of disagreement. He was like, "What? Someone talked back to me." I'm like, "Fuck yeah. Sit the fuck down and let your son talk." That's what I wanted to say. I ain't your bitch. I'm here to help your son. Sit down and let him answer. And I'm sorry, there was a lot of swear words there, but that was what was really going on in my head. So they did. The son started talking, and actually, it was really funny that moment where I said it very directly. I looked right at the kid's face, and his dad couldn't see it, and the kid went like this. He started laughing. He thought it was. I made a permanent friend in the son in that moment, because I had the courage to talk back to his dad, and I'm sure his son was like, "Hell yeah." And he kind of smiled and snickered, but he did not want his dad to see. He was like really upset that he was afraid his dad would see. And so he sat up and he said, "Well, I've always thought of blah, blah, blah." And he started talking about this drone project that he's been dreaming of doing. And it was really cool. It was a fun drone project. And, so, I was like, damn, I really want to help this guy out. He really has this dream of this thing he wants to build, and I'd love to really help him. But we didn't have slots. In fact, I told them before they came in for the interview, I was like, "Look, I don't have any currently available open slots. I am just taking interviews for a few people to put them on the waiting list, so that if we ever have, because people tended to not leave once they got in. I was very picky. At the time, I only took about 40 or 50 people, because we were doing it all out of the house. It was close to COVID and everything. I didn't have a lot of space, as was indicated by the driveway. And he actually, uh, so I didn't even want to have the interview, but I'm glad I did. But by the end of it, it was pretty clear that I wanted to help him, and it was very hard for me because I did want to help him. I wanted him to start right away, but I didn't have any open slots. And this guy, this is even further than this. Again, the rules don't apply to me, right? No, I am the exception. He said to me, he says, he goes, "Well, what would it take to have my son start now?" And I said, I was I unclear? There is no open slot right now. And I showed him, I pulled up on the big 40-inch television, I'm sorry, 60-inch television. I put up the big schedule, put it right there. And I said, see, there's no open spots. And there's no open. And then he said something like this. He goes, "What about Tuesday at 5 o'clock?" This is true story. What about Tuesday at 5 o'clock? He's like looking down, and there was a spot. There was a person in that spot, and he could see it. It was on the screen, but he could not see that somebody was already in the spot because he was so blinded by his own entitlement. I'm not kidding. This guy was staring at my business calendar full, and he was not seeing all the people there. He was seeing what time was best for him. And the next thing he says is, how about Tuesday at 5 o'clock or whatever? And I said, I'm sorry, can you not see there's a person there? It's like, well, what would it take for us to have that spot? I said, you can have that spot. There's somebody there. No, I'm sure there's some way that, we can make it work, right? I'm like, no, there's not. There's somebody there. And the person, by the way, that was there was somebody I've been mentoring for like 3 years. There was no way I was going to give that spot away. I mean, how dare you? You come in here, you think you're some new guy, and you're just going to flash around your entitlement and your money, and you're just going to like bulldoze your son into the system? What makes you think that you can do that? Oh, I don't know. You've done that at every place else? This is why we have laws, people. This is why we have laws and rules, and we have to stick with them. And this guy was operating based on not what if everybody did it. He was like, what can I get away with? What can I get away with? What can I got money, I got power. I'm sure I can make this happen. Well, suffice it to say, I didn't let him in. I did let him in, but I let him in another spot. I made a new spot, to tell you the truth. I'm a little ashamed of it because he only lasted 2 weeks. He only lasted 2 weeks because of his dad. Because I made another spot, which was on a day that was busy and hard for them to make. And I said, okay, let's at least have you come for this too. We'll get you started on this day, and then eventually you can move over. And then he was so busy doing other things, he didn't come. He didn't come, and I had to tell him. I was like, you don't. I mean, there's so much more to this particular story. So he actually is. I actually eventually gave him one of the $200 Walmart special laptops so they could put Linux on there. The point being, you can break it and you don't have to pay anything. And he brought it back, and the kid handed me on his first session. He handed me the computer. The kid handed me the computer and said, "My dad says I can't use this." I'm like, "What? No, I'm telling you to use that." And he's like, "My dad, we bought me this," and so he bought him this like $3,600 NVIDIA gaming system or whatever. No, it was like a Razer gaming system. I'm like, we are not going to blow the OS away on that and keep putting Linux back and forth on it, put 5 different OSs. This is a horrible idea. We don't want to break that computer. Well, that's what my dad says I have to use. My dad says I'm not allowed to use that computer. And that was the beginning of the end. I knew we were in trouble. This guy had said, no, you will not be seen with this Acer $200 laptop. I'm not going to let you be seen with that. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? And so we gave him this like really expensive gaming machine, which I was never going to tell him to. Seriously, his dad said, "You are not allowed. You cannot use this. My dad immediately bought me this computer and says I need to use this. So here you go." I said, "But I wanted you to use that not because of any money reason, because you're going to be breaking it. You're going to be trying it. You're going to be doing a thing with it." He's like, "Well, can we do that with this?" And I went, "No, it's really not possible. That's a really, I mean, you can, but that you'd be wasting your money on that computer." I said, "Well, that's what my dad said." And it was just this constant fight. And he's not the first one, by the way. I've had the CIO of Bank of America, who went on at the time. You probably wouldn't know him. He's not the current. He came in my room. I actually dropped $5,200. No, $1,000. It was it 27,000 or 52,000? I can't remember. But I bought all Macs because of a stupid impression that a CTO had come in, and he looked around and he saw all these Acers on Linux, right? And he actually, one of them actually said, "Oh, my family only uses Mac," and so I eventually, it's one of the stupidest business decisions I ever made. I eventually bought all Mac laptops and all Mac minis. So that when these people would come into the door, they would be impressed that there were Macs there, and they would be more likely to sign their kid up, which was really, really stupid because, even though Mac's awesome, I mean, I could go all day on that stupid decision. But the point is that catering to the lowest common denominator is sometimes required. So, um, you know, within a few weeks, that particular boy had conflicts. He was a track star actually, and never, just never prioritized tech. And I was like, I'm sorry, this isn't working out. He's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you can't come. He hasn't been here very much. Yeah, but we're still paying. I'm like, yeah, but I only have 50 or 60 spots, and I need to make sure people that are here are prioritizing their activities when they're here. He's like, wait, I'm paying you for that spot, and you're telling me I can't have it? I'm like, yeah, I'm telling you that. I'm telling you that if we're gonna have a spot, I want people who are dedicated who are gonna be using it. Yeah, but I'm paying you. It's like this is sickness all over America. It's like I am going to rent. We have skyscrapers in New York that are completely empty because people have just rented it out as a good investment. People with money think that they can buy out everything else that they ever want or ever need, and this is one of those cases. I'm like, no, I don't care if you're paying me or not. You can't have that spot. I want people who are going to do the work. But and so that, again, to the point, I had to make a policy. If you miss more than three or four in a row, you are going to, I mean, I had to put it in black and white. If you miss more than 3 or 4 in a row without talking to me, you're going to forfeit your spot. And I actually created an entire point system. No kidding. I created an entire point system so that I managed internally, so that every single person in my learning community had a score, and their score was based on all of the things that I prioritized. I had to build this for myself because I had to make really tough decisions when I moved. I had to get rid of like 15 people. And so I created an entire point system that was based on how close are they to moving, how committed have they been, how many times have they missed, what's their typing speed, how old are they, how close are they to graduation, how important is it, I had all of this stuff so that they had a score. And I would use the score on occasion. I would have to show the parents the score. I would say, look, because there would be 3 people in the same class, and I'd have to pick which one got taken out. And it wasn't based on who was the smartest, who had the highest grades. It was based on a number of things, including how much they were committed. Were they coming? Were they showing up? Were they doing things outside of class? When I asked the question, what did you work on this week? If they told me, oh, nothing, and then we just worked on stuff together for the hour rather than having them come with a bunch of questions about the stuff that they had done for the last 7 days, those people were far more committed and they got a much higher score. So I had to develop this entire system based on people abusing the system or abusing the lack of a system because they were just so used to getting away with whatever they wanted to do. So I had to create policies. I had to say, look, you're going to sign up for a whole semester or not. You get 2 days off, fine. 10 minutes after the thing, I'm going to go do something else, and you're paying a full amount. You don't like it? You know who helped me to do this? One of our children went to voice lessons, and the Russian vocal instructor was hardcore. If you were 5 minutes late, you paid the full amount and you were out. She was hardcore, and she's like, no. And she put it in policies, and she kept it, man. And people were like in the foyer when they were like going there to wait to have their kid go. They were like, they'd have these little lessons, they'd have these little talks with each other. Music teachers are brutal. They have to be because they have learned that people will take advantage of them, not because they're bad people necessarily, but because the human nature is to try to get away with as much as we can. This is why I think Kant's moral imperative is so important, because humans naturally want to try to get away with things. And if we can try to ask ourselves, is this one of those times? Am I trying to get away with something right now? Is there something I'm trying to do that I really shouldn't do? I'll just throw this one cigarette butt on the ground. Oh, I'll just, I'm just going to put one dirty dish in the sink. I can rinse the dish and I can put it in the dishwasher, but I just don't feel like doing it today. So let's see what I can get away with. Can I put one dirty dish in the sink? We all do it. We all do it. We all do it, and the question is, what if everybody did it? And that's really what we have to do. That's really the end of this. I I feel like I do better at it sometimes than others. But back to the bicycle riding thing. So if I apply, you know, you'll just sink first before the dishwasher. That doesn't matter. It depends on what your policy for sink and dishes are. I actually, I think loading the sink up first and then putting them all at the same time in the dishwasher. I don't like dishwashers. I should probably tell you that I don't like dishwashers. Um, I look. It just depends on whatever your policies are. So the takeaway from this really is, just be aware that there's always it's just human nature to try to get away with something. And if you want to be a better person, try to think about what you cannot get away with. Like this truck driver. This truck driver thinks that they can get away with crossing a double line on a blind turn, and they almost killed someone because the rule of law, those rules and the rule of law is there for a reason. And every time I run a stoplight, a stop sign, I have to ask myself, this is those of you guys who know me, you know what I mean? Um, People who know me know that I run stop signs. And that is one of those places where I've got to ask myself, am I thinking the rules don't apply to me? But then there's also the other flip side of the coin where there are so many rules that sometimes it's the spirit of the law, right? And the spirit of the law of running the stop sign sometimes actually is in the benefit of others, particularly when there's car around. But if I literally stopped at every stop sign, there would be no. Let me give you a perfect example of this. The reason that this group ride is on this big, long, trafficked road is because there's no stop signs. There's only one stop sign on the whole thing. So this entire group ride goes out on this very dangerous traffic road because they don't want to have to deal with stop signs all the time because they'd have to stop at every stop sign as a group. And there's very few times when a group like of this size would run a stop sign, and they did when they're in the suburbs and there's like hardly nobody around. But when there's like a serious light or a stop sign, they don't want to do that. So this entire group ride has put everybody in danger by going out on a highly trafficked road, forcing this to happen. And for why? So that they don't have to deal with stop signs? I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's not always really black and white. It's not really easy to determine. Rule of law is sometimes the rule of the spirit of the law. And the spirit of the law of those stop signs is, hey, let's be cautious here. And I've chosen to ride my bike in areas where there's an exceptionally large number of stop signs, but they're all sort of suburban stop signs, and my stream sees them and they're like, oh my God, he's running in a stop sign. Because going through an average suburb, I might run into like 10 stop signs in one suburb, but they're all extremely low traffic roads with almost nobody around. In fact, I will not run a stop sign if there's a car anywhere near it. And I will not run a stop sign that's blind, that I cannot see whether there are cars coming or not. The point being that I don't want people to think I'm a hypocrite because I'm saying, "Oh, rule of law, I'm the exception to the rule." It's complicated, but we do need to at least ask the question. When is it okay for us to, to act? I mean, and really for me, that's where Kant's moral imperative comes from. I'm not saying obey every law. I'm not saying that. There are some laws that are just downright wrong. They're unethical. And the question is, what if everybody did it? If everybody who went out on a solo bike ride blew the 100% visible stop signs in the suburb, I don't got a problem with that. I don't. So that helps me. If everybody ran through every stop line they ever saw in the middle of New York City, and I'm gonna take crap for this because there are many people that I deeply respect that are amazing human beings, and they also have absolute no regard for, to the point where it passes my threshold. And I don't want to start pointing fingers here, but when people are deliberately running lights and stuff like that in any big city, and they're putting if every single biker, even every single biker with skills, did the same thing, that would be impossible for us to have that society. But they think that they're exception because they've been, bikers have been so abused in New York, they feel like they're entitled to behave that way. If every single driver acted like a taxi driver in New York, what would happen? If every single jaywalker did the point is, look for those things. If you're setting up an organization, make sure you have those. Unfortunately, those make sure you think about the lowest common denominator of humans, the ones that are going to try to get away with the most, because they will, good or bad, they're going to try to get away with it. And you need to put protections in place to protect you from that. And that goes for anything in society. I do find it a little bit ironic that so many people who push the rule of law and and following this or that principle have no problem violating that principle. They have no problem. They have no problem when it comes to when it's in their best interest, and you can actually see them saying so. I think that's probably just because humans just don't. They're just. We're all clueless, myself included. There's probably personal biases where I feel like I'm entitled to do something, and if everybody did, it would be okay. And I'm probably wrong. So for me, life is a process of, at least at this point, life is a process of figuring out where are those opportunities for me to do something that is more in line with what if everybody did it. CTO that thinks they're above the rules. Yeah, whenever somebody thinks that they're above the rules, and I mean, maybe there are some cases where that needs to be true. I don't know, but I mean, if the question is every CTO should be able to be above the rules or whatever. Michael Jordan smoking stogies. I told that story last night. Michael Jordan, when I worked at Nike.com, when I worked on Nike, Michael Jordan would smoke a cigar and everybody would smell it in there, and they knew where Michael Jordan was, and they to protest, they also, because there's no smoking on campus law, and Michael Jordan and everybody started coloring in with Sharpie markers a stogie and the Jumpman logo between his two fingers, and Michael Jordan actually saw it, and he stopped. I think he stopped smoking cigars on his campus because Michael Jordan was on campus. He had his own brand and everything. He thought, oh, the rules don't apply to me. Everybody else can't smoke on campus, and he would, waft his cigar smoke all around at everybody because he's Michael Jordan. Anyway, hopefully that gives you something to think about. That's the end of that. I really don't have anything else to say. This video and things like this are giving me a reason to kind of to ask myself if I'm doing it. Am I doing this? And the Buddhists say your enemies should be your friends because they show you what you don't want to be. And every time I see, somebody commenting or somebody out there or a truck driver like this, I rather than get overly angry at them, I'm going to try really hard to learn from the asshole truck drivers and stuff like that. I never ever want to be that truck driver. I never want to be so we can learn from people that we might otherwise hate, and move forward. It's super easy to say what I just said. It's super hard to do it. So here's to doing it. Here's to being, one of these people and uwu with a big heart. Okay.